The Mythology of All Races, Volume 2, Eddic. The Ash Yggdrasil. To the seers of Voluspa, the world tree with its 9 divisions or worlds is the mighty fate tree, or well-planned tree, Mjotnvitr, deep in the earth. The 9 worlds are contained in the tree or symbolized by its divisions. In later passages, the Volva speaks of an ash called Yggdrasil, reaching high aloft, wet with white water. Thence come the dews that fall in the dales. It stands by Urd's well, and the 3 Norns dwell in a hole under it. This reference to the 3 Norns may be interpolated, enlarging on Urd's connection with the tree. Heimdall's horn is hidden under the tree, and a mighty stream pours from Odin's pledge, which is in Mimir's well, on the tree. At the doom of the gods, the tree shakes and its leaves rustle. The picture of the tree in Svipdagsmal is similar. Mimameith, or Mimir's tree, stretches its branches over all lands. No one knows what roots are beneath it. Few can guess what shall fell it, not fire and not iron. Then follows a piece of folklore. The fruit of the tree placed in fire is good for women in childbirth. What was within then comes out. Such might has the tree for men. Gering points out that in Icelandic belief, a hard legumen born to Iceland by the Gulf Stream is used for the same purpose. On the highest bough stands the cock Vitofnir, glittering like gold, shining like lightning, ever watchful, the terror of Surth and Sinmora. If this bird is the same as Gollinkambi, who wakes the heroes in Valhall, the top of the tree must be in Asgard. The bird's watchfulness is a terror to the enemies of the gods. These 2 passages give a picture of a wonderful world tree, its roots on or under the earth. Beside it, Mimir's well, probably the older conception, or Urd's well. As we shall see, Snorri puts these 2 wells beside 2 separate roots of the tree. A more elaborate picture is given in Grimnismal. The ash Yggdrasil is best of trees. Beneath one of its 3 roots is hell. The frost giants beneath the 2nd. Mankind are beneath the 3rd. A lost stanza may have spoken of the wise eagle that sits on the top of the tree, for the next stanza speaks of the squirrel Ratatosk, which carries the eagle's words to the dragon Nidhogg below. 4 hearts nibble the uppermost twigs, perhaps a later amplification of the single heart of a succeeding stanza. Numerous serpents lie beneath the tree and gnaw its branches. Thus the tree suffers, for the heart bite its top. Its trunk is rotting, and Nidhogg gnaws its roots. Meanwhile, the gods ride daily to give judgments at the tree. Thor walks there. Snorri combines this information, but gives varying details. Of the 3 roots, 1 is among the Aesir, 1 among the frost giants, and 1 over Niflheim. Beneath these, each is a well or stream. As the Aesir are in heaven, a root cannot be there, unless we assume that Snorri still regards Asgard as on earth. But later he says that the root is in heaven, and underneath it is Urd's well. Mimir's well is underneath the root among the frost giants. The 3rd root, over Niflheim, is gnawed by Nidhogg. The eagle in the tree knows many things. Between his eyes sits the hawk Vedroffolnir. Ratatosk bears envious words between the eagle and Nidhogg. Snorri thus upsets the whole conception of Yggdrasil by placing one of its roots in heaven, with Urd's well there, and by setting Mimir's well among the frost giants. Most of the details in Grimnisnal may be no more than decorative motifs, perhaps derived from the presence of birds or other animals in sacred trees or groves, or, as R. M. Meyer supposes, from sculptured representations of trees with conventional animals. Budge thought that the poet had seen monuments in the north of England with ornamentation like that on the Bewcastle Cross in Cumberland, if not that cross itself. On such crosses was carved a tree, in the foliage of which sat an eagle or hawk, squirrels and serpents, and ate of its fruits. If the tree or the animals had any mythic significance, the key to it is lost, in spite of the ingenious conjectures of modern mythologies. The ash Yggdrasil has many prototypes. It recalls sacred trees beside sacred wells from which oracles were obtained. It is linked to the Vartrad, or ward tree, growing beside Swedish houses, which, if cut down, brings the prosperity of the house to an end. A significant fact when we remember that the gradual destruction of Yggdrasil denotes the approach of the doom of the gods. It may thus have once been a mythic heavenly Vartrad, growing beside the hall of the gods. Such a tree is spoken of in a stanza quoted by Snorri, Glacier growing by the doors of Valhall, its leafage of red gold, the fairest tree known among gods and men. Grimnismal also speaks of a tree, Lairad, growing beside Odin's hall. From the horns of the heart which bites its branches, a stream falls into Vergelmir, whence all the rivers flow. This also resembles a Vartrad, and both trees may be forms of Yggdrasil. When Grimnismal speaks of the gods riding to judgment beneath Yggdrasil, this may be reminiscent of actual processions to judgment beneath a Vartrad or a temple tree. Yggdrasil also resembles the sacred tree growing beside a temple, like that one described by the scholiast to Adam of Bremen. Beside the temple at Uppsala was a great tree with spreading branches, always green, even in winter. Its origin was known to none. Near it was a spring used for sacrifices. The branches of Yggdrasil were also far spreading. It was always green. Beside it was a spring. No one knew its fate or its roots. The old Prussian holy oak at the sanctuary, called Vromov, also offers an analogy to Yggdrasil. It had 3 divisions, each sacred to a god, and an image of each stood in each Peutil fire. Before the god Perkuna of one division burned perpetual fire. Before Potrimpo was the snake fed by the priests and priestesses. Before Patolo, the heads of a man, horse, and cow. This tree was also evergreen. The full name of the edict tree was Askar Yggdrasils, the ash which is Ygg's or Odin's steed, or the ash of Odin's horse. Yggdrasil was a kenning for Odin's horse Sleipnir. The name may be due to the fact that victims sacrificed to Odin were hung on sacred trees, riding the tree, gallows, or horse sacred to him. Other explanations are given. It is the tree in which is Odin's steed, the wind. Or Odin tethered his horse to the tree. Or, less likely, it is the tree on which Odin hung, hence his gallows or steed. In the same way, the gallows was called the ice-cold steed of Signy's husband in a skaldic poem. But, as Shadwick points out, there is not a single reference to the world tree having served as Odin's gallows, while the name Yggdrasil may have been applied to the earthly Vartrad and transferred together with the conception of the tree to its heavenly copy. The mythic Yggdrasil was almost certainly a tree growing on earth before it was transferred to the other world and the region of myth. This tree is also connected with widespread myths of a world tree growing on a mountain or in the center of the earth and reaching to heaven. Such a tree also resembles the mythic world pillars supporting heaven. Both trees and pillars are many-storied. The roots of the tree go down into the underworld. Its topmost branches pierce the sky, and it stands by a spring, lake, or sea, or in by the sea itself. As in a Yakut tale, a goddess dwells at the root of the tree and foretells the future, like Urd or Mimir. Tree or pillar is often the tethering post of deities, especially of the overgod, as in the Yakut tale, and this throws light on Yggdrasil as connected with Odin. Such mythical pillars and trees are known all over northern Asia and can be traced in India, Iran, Mesopotamia, and Egypt. The eagle Garuda or Garide is believed to dwell in the tree. At its roots is a dragon or snake at which the eagle pecks. In some of these myths, a spring flows from the tree or from its sap, and, as in Iranian belief, all the rivers of earth have their source in it. So out of Yggdrasil flows dew, called by men honey-dew, on which bees are nourished, and the source of rivers is connected with the tree Lairad. Such mythic trees would be suggested by lofty forest trees on which the sky seemed to rest, and, as in some Polynesian myths, which separated earth and heaven. Then, as the sky seemed to recede into a remoter distance, arose the fable of one lofty tree reaching from earth to heaven. Myths of a heaven-supporting tree are numerous, and they survive in tales of Jack and the Beanstalk. The resemblances of the Scandinavian tree to such mythic trees are numerous, and its origins need not therefore be sought in medieval Christian legends of the cross as a world tree, which, in fact, carry on the tradition of these mythical trees. The myth of the sky as a tent roof supported on a pillar or post occurs among the Lapps, Finns, and North Asiatic tribes, Japanese, and ancient Egyptians. The Asiatic pillar is 7 stories, representing the 7 heavens, and it is the tethering post of the stars or of the horses of the gods. Posts with 7 branches, on which artificial victims are hung, symbolize the mythical post. The Lapps also had such sacrificial pillars, representing the heavenly pillar supporting the world, with an iron nail at the top, a symbol of the world nail which fixed the sky in place. The name of the sky is the pole star, round which the heavens are thought to revolve. This belief of the Lapps may have been borrowed from the Scandinavians. Similar beliefs were entertained by the Celts and in ancient India. The symbolism of the 7 heavens in tree or pillar, like the 3 divisions of the remover tree, recalls the 9 worlds or divisions of the Edic tree. This helps us to understand the Irminsul of the Saxons, a word denoting sanctuary, image, or pillar, such as was destroyed by Charlemagne, but its general influence was that of a pillar or tree stump. Rudolf of Fulda says that the Saxons venerate leafy trees and springs, and worship a huge tree trunk called Irminsul, which means universalis columna, as if it sustained all things. The Irminsul must have been a symbol of a mythic world pillar, and connected with the cult of god Irmin. The nail of the sky may also have been known in Scandinavia, as its name, Veraldarmagli, occurs in Icelandic folk poetry. The mythic world mountain may be seen in the Himinbjörg, or Heaven Mountain, situated at the end of Bifrost. These various conceptions show that, Whatever details may be due to Christian influences, the Eddic world tree was a native conception. The theory that it was copied from the medieval legend of the cross was advanced by Bugge, E. H. Mayer, and Golther, though Budge admitted the existence in Scandinavian belief of a wonderful holy tree, which, under Christian influence, was transformed into a world tree. In the medieval legend, the cross was a tree linked to the tree of life in paradise. Its end, set in the earth, reached down to the underworld. The top reached to heaven. The two arms spread over the world. The cross was our Lord's steed, according to medieval poetic usage, and steed was a metaphor for gallows, the victim being the rider. The point d'appuy here is the explanation of Yggdrasil as Odin's gallows, because he hung on it. As we have seen, there is no evidence that the tree on which he hung was Yggdrasil. The dragon Nidhogg is the serpent of Eden, associated with the tree from which the cross was derived. Be this as it may, the Yggdrasil conception is not entirely, if at all, due to such legends as these. The doom of the gods. A phrase used in the poetic Edda is Ragnarok, fate or doom of the gods. Ragna being genitive plural of Ragen, or powers, gods. It resembles the phrase Aldarok, destruction of the world, used in Vafthrudnismal. Another phrase, with which it is often confused, is Ragnarokr, the darkness of the gods, which occurs in Lokasenna and is used by Snorri. Used mistakenly as a proper noun, Ragnarok, the phrase, is often rendered twilight of the gods. This doom of the gods, the central incident of a wider myth of the destruction of the world, is the subject of a great part of Voluspa, and shows that, as the gods are not eternal, a parte ante, so their life at last comes to an end. In view of that doom, Valhall must be filled with heroes, and even now Thor fights with the enemies of the gods. The Voluspa poet connects the doom with the coming of the three giant maids, the Norns, which brought the golden age of the gods to an end. Now the gods are brought under the power of fate. The doom is also linked to the first war, when gods fought the Vanir, and more immediately with the death of Balder. The verses describing these events do not all belong to the original poem, and may have been interpolated by a moralizing poet. The dualism which results in the conquest of gods by demoniac beings, who are themselves annihilated, is the foundation of the myth. This is bound up with fate, stronger than the gods, but the verse regarding this, the coming of the Norns, is isolated and is followed by interpolated verses about the dwarves, which may have ousted standards continuing the subject. Then follows an outrage perpetrated by the gods, a wild kind of justice described in two interpolated stanzas. This is the first war in the world, and concerns the slaying of Gulveig by the gods. She must have had some evil design in coming to the gods' world, hence they slew her, yet she ever lives. This may be connected with the war between Aesir and Vanir, if Gulveig was Freya, a Vanir goddess. This war is also called the First War. During the contest with the Vanir, the wall of the god citadel was broken down. A moralized sign of the end is now introduced, a reference, intelligible only from Snorri's account of the myth, to the breaking of oaths made by the gods to the giant artificer whom Thor slew. The gods have perjured themselves. Balder's death is the next step to the doom. The working of demoniac might through Loki against the gods has begun. Loki is put in bonds, but greater woes are coming, and Frigg weeps sore for Valhall's need. The coming doom was almost certainly the subject whispered by Odin into the dead Baldur's ear. As a consequence of the god's violence and treachery, evils abound among men, oath-breaking and revenge, and these are punished in the underworld. That the final destruction and doom of the gods is a genuine Teutonic myth we take for granted. There seem, however, to be different myths of the manner in which this would happen, and these are more or less combined in Völuspá. 1. A destruction of the world by its sinking into the sea, from which it had emerged, according to one cosmogonic myth. The sun becomes black, earth sinks into the sea, from heaven fall the bright stars. This is also described in Yndlólyod. The sea ascends in storm to heaven, it swallows the earth, the air becomes sterile. To this may be linked the swallowing of the sun by a monster, an eclipse myth used to heighten the effect of the myth of the world's destruction. This myth of the sinking of the earth into the sea is perhaps connected with the daily apparent sinking of the sun into the sea, as seen by dwellers on the coast. The world ends with a mighty winter, Fimbulvetur. In Vafthrudnismal, Odin asks, "What of mankind shall survive the mighty winter?" Vafthrudnir answers that Lif and Lifthrasir, hid in Hodmimir's wood, will survive it. In Snorri's account, they survive the destructive fires of Surth. Yndlólyod speaks of snows and furious winds which follow the sinking of earth in the sea, and in Völuspá, mighty storms come in summer. Snorri says that this winter will precede the doom. Snow will drive from all quarters, with sharp frost and wind. The sun will be without power. 3 such winters will follow in succession with no summer between. Over the earth are mighty battles. Brothers will slay each other for greed's sake. None spares father or mother in murder and incest. He then cites a stanza of Völuspá which refers to these evils. Brothers shall fight and slay each other. Sisters, sons break kinship's bonds. Hard is it on earth with much unchasteness. Axe wage, sword age, shields are cloven. Wind age, wolf age, ere sinks the world. No man will ever another spare. 3. A third myth is that of the destruction of the world by fire. Völuspá tells how Surth comes from the south with the scourge of branches, that is, fire. In the stanza which describes earth sinking into the sea, it is said that steam rages and the preserver of life, of fire, shoots high to heaven itself. The fires of Surth are also mentioned in Vafthrudnismal as occurring at the end of the world. The possible destruction of the world by fire, that is, by the sun, is spoken of in Grimnismal. If it were not for the shield in front of the sun, mountains and seas would be set in flames. Snorri often refers to this final fire, and says that Surth will cast fire and burn the world. The sons of Muspel ride forth, Surth at their head, before him and after him burning fire. His sword is very good, from it shines a light brighter than the sun. As they ride over Bifrost, the bridge breaks down. In an earlier notice, Surth is said to sit at the world's end by Muspelheim. At the last he will go forth and harry, overcome the gods, and burn the world with fire. Fire and heat were sources of life, now they are its destruction. These separate myths, or at least the first and second, are combined in Völuspá, together with the myth of the freedom gained by chained monsters, the Fenris wolf, Loki, and Garm, and all 3 appear in Snorri's account of the doom, in which he quotes freely from the poem. The doom begins with moral evils on earth. The sons of Mim, the waters or spirits of the waters, are in motion. The Gjallar horn sounds the note of doom as Heimdall blows it. All the hellways are in fear. Yggdrasil shakes. It leaves rustle, for the giant, the Fenris wolf, is free. Odin consults the head of Mim, but the wolf will slay him soon. Then comes an impressive stanza. How fare the gods? How fare the Alfar? All Jotunheim roars. The gods take counsel. The dwarfs stand groaning before their rock doors, the lords of the rock walls. Would you know yet more? From the east comes Rum, leader of the giants. The Midgard serpent rides in giant fury. The eagle, Ralsvelg, screams aloud, knowing corpses. The ship Naglfar is loose, steered, as Snorri says, by the giant Rum and carrying the giants. Another ship sails from the north with the people of Hel, steered by Loki. Wild hosts follow the wolf. With them is Byleip's brother, Loki. From the south comes Surt with fire. The hills are shattered, the giantesses fall, the dead crowd Helway. Heaven is cloven. To Frigg comes yet another grief. She sees Odin die by the wolf. Frey seeks out Surt. Vidar pierces the wolf with his sword, avenging Odin. Thor advances against the Midgard serpent and strikes a death blow, but himself falls dead, suffocated by the venom. Now the sun turns black. Earth sinks into the sea. Stream and flame grow in fierceness, and fire leaps up to heaven itself. It is the end. Snorri's account of the advance of the gods and the fighting is vivid. The wolf rushes forward, mouth gaping, the upper jaw touching heaven, the lower the earth, fire blazing from eyes and nostrils. The Midgard serpent by its side blows venom. Heaven is cloven, and Muspel's sons, led by Surt, ride forth, fire preceding and following them. They ride to a field Vigrid, and there come also the Fenris wolf, the Midgard serpent, Loki, Rum, and the frost giants. The people of Hel follow Loki. Heimdall blows his horn. Odin rides to Mimid's well to take counsel with him. Yggdrasil trembles. All in heaven and earth are in fear. The Aesir arm themselves and ride to the field, with all the Einherjar from Valhall. Odin is in front, with golden helmet, byrnie, and spear. Thor is beside him, but cannot aid him against the Fenris wolf, as he must encounter the Midgard serpent. The watchdog of Hel, Garm, is loose, doing battle with Tyr, each slaying the other. Thor slays the serpent, strides away 9 paces, and falls dead, overcome by its venom. Frey fights with Surt and falls, for he lacks his sword, having given it to Skirnir. The wolf swallows Odin, but Vidar sets one foot on its lower jaw, and with his hand seizes the upper jaw, and tears them in two. Loki fights with Heimdall, and each slays the other. Surt then throws fire over the earth and burns it up. Snorri gives details not in Voluspa. Example, Tyr's fight with Garm, and Heimdall's with Loki. He incorporates some incidents from Vafthrudnismal, which also contains some notices of the doom, that is, the field Vigrid, Njord's return to the Vanir before the end, the mighty winter which Lif and Lifthrasir survive, the swallowing of the sun, the fires of Surt, Odin's death by the wolf, its slaying by Vidar, and Thor's end. In spite of the large muster of forces, only a few are described as actual combatants. On one side Odin, Thor, Tyr, Heimdall, Frey, and Vidar. On the other, the wolf, the serpent, Garm, Loki, and Surt. No account of the participation of other gods or of the Einherjar is given. Some of these pairs of opponents are found in hostility to each other in non-eschatological myths, Thor and the Serpent, Heimdall and Loki. The doom is known to the poets who wrote Baldur's Draumer and Grimnismal. In the former, the Sibyl tells Odin that none shall seek her till Loki is free from his bonds and the destroyers come to the doom of the gods. In the latter, Thor is to dwell in Thrudheim till the gods are destroyed, a phrase used also in Vafthrudnismal. Some of the skaldic poems also refer to it. In Eiriksmal, Odin speaks of the time not being known when the grey wolf shall come upon the seat of the gods. In Hakonarmal are the words, "The Fenris wolf shall be let loose on mankind ere such a good king as Hakon shall arise." Verses by Cormac, circa 935 AD, say, "The earth shall sink, the mountains drop into the sea, before such a fair woman as Steingood shall be born." Arnor Irlaskald, circa 1065 AD, wrote, "The bright sun shall turn black, the earth sink into the dark sea, the dwarf's burden, or heaven, shall be rent, the sea rush up over the hills, ere such a one as Thorfinn shall be born." These references are in conformity with the Eddic account. In the story of the Yadnings battle, it is said that the fight will continue till the doom of the gods. And when the maiden saw the dead Helgi and his men riding to their barrow, she cried, "Is this the doom of the gods? The dead men ride?" How far Christian influences have colored or molded the ideas and incidents of the world catastrophe is problematical. Different critics assume more or less of such influence. While here and there echoes of scriptural language and incidents may be found, the conception as a whole seems original, or at least based on a native folklore and eschatological myths. Parallels from other mythologies exist, but it does not follow that there was borrowing from these. The swallowing of the sun by a monster is a widespread myth. Iranian mythology has a parallel to the mighty winter in its eschatology, the devastation caused by the reign of Malkosh, when most of mankind die of excessive cold, snow, and famine. Rydberg and others regard the Iranian and Eddic myths as examples of an old Indo-Germanic belief. The belief in the world's destruction by water and fire existed among the Celts, apart from Christian influence. There are classical references to this belief among the Celts, and it exists in native Irish documents. The prophecy of the war goddess Badb about evils to come and the end of the world, and that of Fersentne in the colloquy of the two sages, have a certain likeness to the prophecy of doom in Voluspa. One point requires further elucidation. Snorri says that the sons of Muspel ride with Surth at their head over Bifrost Bridge. At the end of the conflict, the fires of Surth consume the world. He has already spoken to the southern region of fire, Muspel or Muspelheim, at whose frontiers sits Surth waiting to go forth against the gods and destroy the world with fire. Muspel has the largest ship, Naglfar. From the sparks flowing out of Muspel, the gods made the chariot of the sun and the lights of heaven. Two passages only of the poetic Edda mention Muspel. Loki told Frey that when the sons of Muspel ride through Mirkwood, he will be weaponless. In Voluspa, the manuscripts have the reading "the people of Muspel," which is corrected by critics to "the people of hell." Bifrost is spoken of twice. In Fafnismal, the gods assemble at Oskopnir, the not yet created, perhaps another name for Vigrid, to meet Surth, and Bifrost breaks down as they cross it. Elsewhere it is the hosts of Surt who break it down. A stanza in Grimnismal speaks of Thor wading through rivers, for Bifrost burns in flame. This may either refer to the time of doom or express a myth of the sun's reappearance after thunder when the rainbow bridge seems to be on fire. Is Muspel a word originating from pagan or from Christian conception? Grimm says that in it we find another striking proof of the prevalence of Old Norse conceptions all over Teutondom. The word occurs in the Saxon Heliand. The power of Mudspelli fares over men, and Mudspelli comes in dark night as a thief. The reference is to the Day of Judgment. And a Bavarian poem says of the fire which burns up the world, "No friend can help another for the Muspelli." Thus the word refers to a world conflagration, as in the Eddas. Did it first betoken the fire as a Christian conception, or was it originally applied to a similar pagan conception? Opinions are sharply divided here, as also on the root meaning of the word. Grimm takes it to mean fire, its component parts being mud, mu, earth, wood, tree, and spilli, cognate with spilla, to destroy. Hence, the word is an epithet of fire. Others connect spilli with spell, or prophecy, and regard mud as a Latin loan word from mundus, hence a prophecy of the world, that is, of its end. In this sense, the word, originating from Christian preaching about the end of the world by fire, took root in Teutonic thought and passed to Scandinavia. Other derivations have been suggested, and there is a copious literature on the subject. There is every likelihood that the destruction of the world by fire was a native conception, as in other mythologies, though Christian influences may have worked upon it. The poetic Edda personifies the agents of destruction as Muspel's sons, that is, spirits of fire or fire giants. Fire may have been personified as a giant called Muspeller. Snorri then gives the conception of a southern region of fire, Muspel or Muspelheim, whether this originated with him or not. The destruction of the world by fire was a Celtic conception, as has been seen, and this may have passed from Celts to Teutons or have been a belief common to both. Why a myth of the destruction of the gods should have originally originated in Scandinavia is uncertain. It does not appear to signify the defeat of Norse gods by the Christian religion, for there is no trace of such a conception in the sources. We cannot even say that it arose out of a weakening of the old religion among the people. They were still firmly attached to it when Christianity appeared in the north. The best parallel to it is found in Scandinavian mythology itself, as in Greek, the destruction of the older race of giants by the gods. The renewal of the world. The gods are gone, men destroyed, the earth sunk in the sea or burned, but now appears a new world. This is the theme of the final stanzas of Völuspá. Now I see for a second time earth in fresh green rise from the sea. The cataracts fall, the eagle flies, he catches fish from the rocks. The Aesir assemble on Ithavol. They speak of the mighty earth in Girdler. They recall the mighty events of the past and the ancient ruins of Fimbultur. Then once more will the wonderful golden tables be found in the grass, which once in old time the gods possessed. On fields unsown will fruit spring forth, all evils vanish. Balder comes back. Hod and Balder dwell in Rupt's battle hall, the hall of the mighty battle gods. Then can Hoynir choose the prophetic wand. The sons of the brothers of Thwegi abide in spacious Viddenheim. Would ye know yet more? A hall I see, brighter than the sun, overlaid with gold on Gimle sand. There dwell forever the righteous hosts, enjoying delights eternally. From on high comes a mighty one, to the great judgment, ruling all. From below the dark dragon flies, the glistening snake from Nithafjol. On his wings bears Nidhogg, flying over the plain, the corpses of men. Now must I sink. There is thus a new earth without ills, where fruits unsown ripen, a typical Elysian or Golden Age world. Some of the gods return, those who were not destroyed, Balder, Hod, Hoynir, the sons of Thwegvi's brothers, of whom nothing is known. They speak of the things of the past, of the Midgard serpent, of Odin's runes, Fimbultur, the mighty god. They find the golden tables on which the gods had once played a kind of draughts in the Golden Age. In their home at peace they played at tables. The mysterious, mighty one is almost certainly a borrowing from Christianity, just as the hall on Gimle is a reflection of the Christian heaven. The final stanza about Nidhogg is apparently not in its right place. Its last words, however, belong to the end of the poem, and refer to the Volva, who, having delivered her prophecy, sinks back whence she came. Some have taken the verse as meaning that the dragon tries to rise, but is defeated and sinks forever. This is unlikely, and she must sink refer to the seeress. Yndlolyod also speaks of the high god to come. There comes another, a mightier, yet dare I never his name foretell. Few are they who can further see than when Odin shall meet the wolf. The New World, as well as other details, is known to the poet of Vafthrudnismal. During the mighty winter, Lif and Liftrasir survive. The son, Alfrodul, will bear a daughter ere the wolf swallows her, and this daughter will follow her mother's ways when the powers fall. Odin then inquires about the maidens who shall fare over the sea. Vafthrudnir's reply shows that 3 throngs of maidens descend over Motgarsir's dwelling place. They will be guardian spirits to men, though they come of giant stock. These are perhaps kindly Norns. The giant then tells Odin that, after Surt's fires have sunk, Vidar and Vali shall dwell in the realm of gods, and Modi and Magni, sons of Thor, shall have his hammer Mjolnir. In this forecast of the new world, there is a further conception. Lif and Liftrasir, life and vitality, progenitors of a new race of men, are hidden in Mimir's grove, possibly Yggdrasil, if Mimamaid, or Mimir's tree, mentioned in Svipdagsmal, is the world tree. This corresponds to the Iranian myth of the Vara, or enclosure of Yama, the first mortal, whose reign is a golden age. He was commanded to make this Vara and fill it with happy mortals, who will repeople the earth after the devastating winter had passed. There will be a new sun, and certain gods will reappear, their names differing from those in Voluspa. The giant maidens who act as guardian spirits, presumably to the dwellers on the new earth, descend over Moktrasir's thorp, or dwelling place, and, as Boer suggests, Moktrasir, he who desires sons, may be the same as Lif, progenitor of the new race. Snorri combines the Voluspa and Vafthrudnismal passages in his account of the New World, but he adds a description of places of bliss and punishment, and here, as we have seen, he seems to have misunderstood his sources. Apart from the reference to Gimle, which appears to be for the writer's dead, the poems say nothing about the lot of the dead in the renewed world. The end.